Greetings, sports fans. This is George with Custom Tied Flies and Guide Service, and I'm going to build for you a Halalu. It's tied on a Mustad 7766 2-aught hook. It's a pretty popular fly for fish in Hawaii. I know a guy that's going out to Hawaii, and he wanted me to make some of these for him, so that's what I'm doing. But I thought I would share this because it brings to a point some of the things that as tiers we have to do, and that's try to be organized so that we can remember what goes where on some of the more complex patterns. And I also wanted to show this to folks who may not necessarily be tires so that they can kind of understand why some of the more complex patterns are a little more expensive. This one has several ingredients in it. Excuse me. Like I said, it's tied on a Mustad 7766, which is a tarpon hook in a 2-aught. I'm using white 210 denier Danville Flymaster thread, which I already have loaded on the old bobbin here. The body is large hollow tinsel, so I get this from UTC. Excuse me. The underwing is white bucktail. All right, and I got this one off the road at some point. The overwing is chartreuse bucktail, and this is a hairline large bucktail. Excuse me. And then there's some silver scale flash. So I get this from Nature Spirit. Excuse me. And then there's grizzly feathers I'm using off of a cape that I got from Ewing. And there's polar flash. There's this color polar flash. It's the Polar Flash 216. There's also the pearl polar flash. It's number 2003. And then there's also green feathers. Now I had to dye this myself, and I mixed I used food coloring, so just like you would for it's the same ratio that you would use to make Easter egg dye. Excuse me. So basically I used a whole tube of food coloring, and then put a couple tablespoons of vinegar in it, and then some hot water. But in order to do that, I had to expand the batch, so I'd make enough to be able to dye what I had to dye. So the cheeks are red crystal flash. The cap is peacock curl. I get this from Hairline or Nature Spirit, one or the other. And the eyes are 5mm 3D eyes. And it's going to have a UV resin head. I'm going to use two different types of UV resin. I'm going to use this UV resin that I get from China. And then I'm also going to use this UV resin, this Solarez. I'm also going to use some of this UV resin that I have a brush applicator for. Excuse me, there's one other scale flash. This goes in there too at some point. So you have to kind of organize your materials on your desk as to how you're gonna use them. So first off, mount your hook. All right. Get tied in. Okay, now I put my large tinsel on a bobbin to kind of keep control of it. Tie it in at the front. Take it back across the shank of the hook. Bring your thread back up. A couple half hitches. I'm using my Renzetti Traveler vise. So I am. So hang my thread over the bobbin cradle, and then I turn the tinsel on. Okay, now I'm going to bring my thread to the left of the tinsel, see, like this. I'm going to take it over, and as I do, I'm bringing the tinsel up and pulling it back, and that way I can take a couple of neat wraps, and that gets it all locked in there. Okay, now saltwater patterns have to be extremely durable. So in order to get them durable, I find it's better and easier to tie them if I tie them in pieces. Okay, so oh, that's the wrong one. So this tinsel body, I'm going to cover in this thin Solarez UV resin. And I'm going to hit it with my light. Now, my light, talk briefly about UV resin and UV lights. Okay, UV resin cures best at this, generally the UV frequency that it likes. Okay, so you have to generally match the frequency of your UV light with what the resin wants so it'll cure. So Solarez cures really well between 450 and 600 nanometers. And that's what the frequency of this light that I got on Amazon is. So once I have this, so if I was tying these in bulk and batches, which I am, but I'm going to show you the next step here in a second. I'm going to show you how to build the next step, and then I'm going to show you the rest of it. Okay. So first thing you apply is your Pearl Flash, this Polar Flash 2003, and what I do is, you see how it's in a, it's stapled to a card. I just thumb the flash around until I get the amount that I want. And then I snip it off. Take that and fold it in half. This is a long fly. It's going to be right around 5 inches when it's done. So lay that on the thread, pull it over, push it up on top of the hook, take a couple of wraps, and then spread it over with your thumb. Okay, there's that. Now the next is your chartreuse bucktail. I use these old spring scissors for cutting hair. I don't like using my $20 material scissors for that. Nope, that's too short. You want something nice and long. There we go. See that in there? That's what you're looking for. Snip that off the hide. Pull the shorties out. And you just spread that out between your thumb and forefinger and get it flat, and then you can pull the shorties out. There we go. Now you want to trim that off square. See a square? Lay it on top, and you're just going to take a couple of loose wraps to get it kind of positioned where you want it. Don't reef down on it yet. You're going to take your thumb and squish and push. Then you reef down on it and get it on there nice and tight. Okay, then you flip your fly over. I'll put this bucktail away because I'm not going to need this. I already tied bases and mid bases, so I'm not going to need that anymore. Okay, so next is your white bucktail, and you want it nice, long. See how long that is? This is the belly of the bait fish that you're trying to represent. Again, flatten it out. Pull the shorties out. And you can crunch it back together. How nice and long that is. There's more shorties. That looks like we're going to need a little more. So just set that to the side for a second. Get you a little more. Pull the shorties out. Now this is where you may, instead of pulling shorties out, you may just want to pull the long ones and then match them up. Pull the long ones, match them up. And then once you get that, and you only got a couple of long ones sticking out, you just pull them. Put that with the rest of it. Isn't that beautiful? Just take your spring scissors, flip it off. Okay. Now you're going to put it in at an angle like this. And again, you don't want to get it real tight yet. Just use a couple of pinch wraps and get it kind of snug, but not to a point where it starts to flare or starts to try to turn. All right. And then in order to get this part to go back, just take your bodkin and comb your fibers back. Roll it over, and then you can reef down on it. You want to start setting your head up. You want your head to be about, I don't know, an eighth or a little bigger than an eighth when it's all done with. Okay. And then the next part is your polar flash. It's an emerald color. It's a 20016. You don't want a lot, but you have to be able to see it. Just fold that in half, just like you did with the other. Put it on the thread. Pull it up top. Let it flatten out a little bit. Okay. I'm going to put a whip on that. You're going to paint it with head cement. You can use Sally Ann hard as nails or Sally Hansen hard, whatever. Clear fingernail polish, head cement, whatever you want to use. And if you get some hair in the eye, try to trim it out now. That way you're not fooling with it later. Okay, and then you're just going to let this off to the side a minute to dry. And then once it's dry, it'll look like this. Okay, then you have your materials laid out. And organized. So that you know what's next. So the way I have my materials organized so that I know what is next, first thing goes on is my grizzly. Then I have my gold flash or gold polar flash 2010. Okay. Then my dyed green hackle wing. Then this pearl scale. Then green bucktail. Then the silver scale flash. Then some emerald polar flash. Then the peacock herl top or cap, and then the red crystal flash for the, it's called the cheeks, but it's going to be gills. And when it's not done, it looks like this. So you want to pull out a couple of grizzly hackles that are about 1/8 of an inch wide. You don't want something real tiny because it's a pretty good sized fly. You want, you know, big feathers on it. This bait fish is big. Now these you put on individually. Get tied back in. Turn that tag. Start working your way back to get your head wide or long, however you want to look at it. Grizzly hackle is the length of the body. I'll make sure it doesn't turn on you. And you get the other one in there, length of the body. Okay. Wrap that up nice and tight. Bring your thread forward up behind the eye, bring it back, and lock it in. Okay. Next is your gold polar flash 2010. You don't want a lot, just enough that you're going to be able to see it. Bend it over your finger so you match it up. And that shows you the midpoint of it that you can then lay on top of the thread. Bring the thread up, get it in place, take a couple of turns, and then spread it out with your thumb. Take your thread down behind the eye, bring it back up. Now you do that, you bring your thread down behind the eye and bring it back up so that you don't end up with a great big square on the front right behind the eye, and then you're fighting with it trying to make your head. All right, next is your green. You want a couple that are kind of narrow. You don't want them real wide. And these go in shiny side to shiny side so that they bounce out like that. Once you get them lined up where you want them, just peel these barbs back, lay it on top. You take 4 wraps, check it, take a couple more, get it locked in place. And then don't try to snip these both at the same time. You'll foul up your placement. Don't want to pull on them too much either because you'll foul up your placement. You get those ends locked down. Take it down behind the eye. Bring it back up. There you go. That's what the top looks like. Okay. If it starts to spin on you, which a lot of times it'll try to come toward you, you just got to kind of straighten it out a little bit. All right, so now you got your green wings in. Next up is your green bucktail. Again, cutting bucktail, use your spring scissors. Get you a pretty long chunk. You just don't want it real thick. Pull those shorties out of there. Yeah, that'll be nice. Just kind of gauge it against your shank, what you're looking for. Okay. Cut those tips off square. Sit it right on top. And then take your thumb and smash it down. That's too much. I mean, if it's too much, take it off. Take some out. Put it off to the side so you can use it later. And you got to go through the whole process again. Sometimes you can tap these tips. Get them straightened out. You don't got to trim them that much. There we go. That's better. See, my head is starting to take shape. Make sure you lash this hair down real well. You want to just go ahead and pull out the long ones that didn't make it under the thread. Make sure you're getting up behind the eye so you don't have a big spot you got to fool with. Try to get as much of that color covered up as you can. You just kind of weed the thread around until you got that green covered up. There we go. All right. Oh, you know what I forgot? Ha! I'm going to take that thread. I'm going to take this off because I forgot something. Got to take all this thread off of here because I forgot some. I forgot the crinkle flash, the scale flash, the chartreuse scale flash. So I got to take all this thread back off. Get my chartreuse scale flash. Take one piece. I tried tying this in the middle and then wrapping it around, and it just played hell with my head, so I stopped doing that. You put that in place like that. Then do the same thing on the other side. There we go. Okay. Now I can put my hair wing back on there for the second time. The thing that reminded me about it was I was about to put the silver on, and then I remembered that I hadn't put the chartreuse on yet, because the silver goes on once you get the head straightened out. Then you get silver scale flash. Got a stray hair there. All right. Now I can put the silver on. And you do the same thing. Go to the far side. Get your silver in place on that side. Come to the near side. Get your silver in place here. Go up. Come back. All right. Next is your cap. You want 14 of these peacock curls. And I lay them on my leg and even them up. So you just have to bear with me while I count these out. Okay, 14. Then you want to even them up. They all should be sticking out about the same length. Okay. And they'll be the length of the fly. That's a cap. Take a couple of wraps on top. Make sure it's in the right place. Take a couple more wraps to secure it. You want to trim those off so that you can push down on them and make them part of the head without getting too square. You get too square, then your thread will slip off. See how that happened? And you can't take too big a bite. There it goes. Because then your thread will slip. There we go. Yep, thread slipped a little bit there. All right. Last thing is your cheeks. You want 6 strands of Crystal Flash. This is Crystal Flash Pearl Red. It's a hairline product. Then again, I lay them out on my leg. Then I pick them up and I try to even the ends out on them. Okay. And then you just put your finger in between there, and then you can just trim those off. You're going to use those on the near side, and you're going to use these on the far side. Okay, so you want to get it kind of in the middle and lay it on the thread. And then you trim it off about halfway down the shank. So it looks like that. And you're going to do the same thing on the near side. Get it about in the middle. Take a couple more wraps there. I'm going to trim it off about halfway down the shank. Okay. I'm going to cover that up in thread. And you don't have to worry so much, a whole lot about covering that up in thread because you're going to put your eyes in over top of that. All right, now I get this great big bulbous head, and I got to put 3D eyes on them, which are flat in the back. So what I do is I take a pair of needle nose pliers, I get on the head, and I squish it. That way I got a nice flat place I can put my eyes. So I get a little drop of super glue. You don't want too big of a drop because, you know, it'll get messy, and then you'll have super glue on your fingers, and you end up getting it all over your eyes, and it's a mess. So there we go. Do the same thing on your side. I get my super glue at the Dollar Tree. I get 2 vials for $1 at the Dollar Tree. And there we go. Now the eyes are in place. Okay. So now we go with the different UV resins. Now I'm using this Solar Res, real thin stuff, because it's got this little thingamabob on it. And I just squirt a little bit out, and I make like a strap. Hit it with the light. Now do the same thing on the near side. Squirt a little bit out. Make your strap. Hit it with the light. Now I got my great big tube of UV resin, and it's thicker, and that's what I use to seal the head up. I don't use UV resin on anything that I don't want to sink, because the density of UV resin is 1.15 that of water, so it adds weight and sinks your bugs, because it's, you know, denser than head cement. Now I feel the top to see where my edges are, if my edges are good to go or not. If they're not, or if I got little holes or gaps or whatever, then I use the thin stuff. Same thing on the other side. All right. Got my stuff back up because when I'm done with this, I got to let my dog out. She's already rang the bell a couple times. All right. So, of course, while I was fooling with putting the eyes on, I got the eyes crooked. So, I'm just going to try to manhandle them a little bit. There we go. That works. And there you have it. The Halalu dressed on a Mustad 7766 saltwater fly for Hawaii. This has been George with Custom Tied Flies and Guide Service. If you like what you see here, please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you're looking for this or other cool videos and tutorials and bugs and information, you are welcome to visit www.custom-tied.com. That's custom-tied.com. Have a splash. Don't forget the dash. You can also find the Custom Tied Virtual Fly Shop on Facebook at Custom Tyer, TYER 02. Happy tying!